On a freezing winter night, Aaliyah Davis walked the shadowy streets with a bag of blankets and food, her breath visible in the cold air. Each step reminded her of her father's struggles, fueling her mission to bring hope to those society had abandoned. What drives a woman to devote her life to the homeless, even when she's on the brink of losing everything herself? For Aaliyah, the answer lies in a $5 bill handed to her by a homeless veteran, a gesture so profound it sparked a movement. But as her dream grew, so did the challenges, rejections, betrayal, and an impossible choice that threatened to tear her resolve apart. When a major philanthropist makes an unexpected offer, Aaliyah must decide: expand her nonprofit at the cost of her community or fight for the very people who inspired her mission. What happens next will leave you speechless. Before we dive deeper into this gripping story, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, Epic Story Moments, yet, now is the perfect time. Hit the bell icon so you never miss an update, and be the first to hear our incredible news stories. Don't forget to like, share, and comment to support more heartwarming tales like this. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We love hearing from you. A cold winter night enveloped the city in an icy grip, the streets bustling with hurried footsteps and the hum of distant traffic. Shadows stretched long under flickering street lamps, casting eerie shapes across the cracked sidewalks. Aaliyah Davis, wrapped in a threadbare coat, navigated the dimly lit paths with determination. Her arms were laden with bags filled with blankets and food, and her eyes scanned the corners where those without homes sought fleeting warmth. The cold bit at her cheeks, but she paid it no mind. Her purpose was clear. Aaliyah had not always walked these streets with such resolve. Just a year ago, her life had been turned upside down. Her father, once the steady rock of their family, had lost his job during an economic downturn. The blow had been devastating, and the spiral that followed led him to lose not only his home, but also his dignity. Seeing her father, a proud man, reduced to begging for shelter had shattered Aaliyah's heart. It was then she decided that no one else should have to endure such a fate. Not if she could help it. Despite her unwavering resolve, Aaliyah's path was anything but easy. Her own resources were stretched thin. She worked 2 jobs, barely scraping together enough to pay her rent and keep food on her own table. Each month was a battle to stay afloat. Yet she refused to give up on her dream of starting a nonprofit organization to support the homeless. As she distributed the blankets and sandwiches she had prepared earlier that day, her thoughts raced. How can I help an entire community when I can barely keep my own lights on? She whispered to herself, her breath visible in the cold night air. But the doubt was fleeting, chased away by the fire of determination that burned in her eyes. She knew this journey would be one of sacrifice, but she also knew it was a journey worth taking. The challenges came swiftly and relentlessly. Aaliyah's small apartment became a makeshift office, cluttered with notebooks filled with plans and a laptop that barely functioned. She sent out letters to potential sponsors, pouring her heart into every word, only to face rejection after rejection. She spent her weekends attending community events, trying to drum up support, but skepticism often met her enthusiasm. People doubted her ability to make a difference, citing her lack of resources and experience. Her personal life suffered as well. Friends who once supported her began to distance themselves, tired of hearing about her impossible dream. Her landlord, frustrated by her late rent payments, threatened eviction. The weight of the world seemed to rest on her shoulders, and there were nights when she lay awake, wondering if she was chasing an illusion. But each time doubt crept in, she thought of her father and the countless others like him, and the thought steeled her resolve. One night, as she made her rounds distributing supplies, she met Marcus, a homeless veteran sitting near a shuttered storefront. His eyes, weary but kind, locked onto hers as she handed him a sandwich and a blanket. He shared his story, a tale of service, loss, and resilience, and ended it with a smile that seemed out of place against the backdrop of his circumstances. "You're doing something special," he said, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a crumpled $5 bill. "This is for your nonprofit. Keep going, Aaliyah's heart swelled with emotion. That $5 felt like a fortune, a symbol of hope and belief in her vision. Inspired by Marcus's gesture, Aaliyah decided to take a bold step. She used the $5 as symbolic seed money and created a crowdfunding campaign. She filmed a heartfelt video, sharing her father's story and the struggles she had witnessed on the streets. Her voice cracked with emotion as she spoke of the people she had met, the lives she hoped to change, and the dream that kept her going. The video was raw and unpolished, but it was real, and it struck a chord. The campaign began slowly, with donations trickling in from friends and strangers alike. Then, something unexpected happened. A local journalist stumbled upon her video and featured her story in an article. Within days, the campaign went viral. Donations poured in from across the country, accompanied by messages of encouragement and stories from people who had faced similar struggles. The overwhelming support was both exhilarating and terrifying. Aaliyah realized that her dream was no longer just hers. It belonged to everyone who believed in her mission. But with success came new challenges. A prominent philanthropist, drawn by the campaign's success, reached out with an offer of significant funding. The catch? The nonprofit would have to relocate to a larger city to maximize its impact. Aaliyah was torn. The thought of expanding her reach was tempting. But her heart remained in her community, the very place that had inspired her journey. Unable to make the decision alone, she turned to the community for guidance. She organized a meeting, inviting everyone she had helped and those who had supported her campaign. The room was filled with faces, each carrying a story of struggle and survival. Marcus stood up and spoke first, his voice steady and clear. Aaliyah didn't just give me a blanket or a meal. She gave me hope, and hope is what this community needs. His words were met with nods and murmurs of agreement. Person after person shared their testimonies, painting a picture of the profound impact Aaliyah had already made. The philanthropist, moved by the outpouring of gratitude and support, reconsidered his conditions. He agreed to fund the nonprofit, while allowing it to remain in its original location, ensuring that Aaliyah could continue her work where it was needed most. With the funding secured, Aaliyah officially launched Second Chance Alliance, a nonprofit dedicated to providing shelter, counseling, and job training to the homeless. The organization quickly became a beacon of hope, transforming lives and revitalizing the community. Within months, homelessness in the area began to decline, and other cities started to look to Aaliyah's model as a blueprint for change. On the nonprofit's one-year anniversary, Aaliyah stood before a crowd gathered to celebrate the milestone. In her hands, she held a small frame containing Marcus's $5 bill. Her voice trembled as she spoke. This wasn't just a donation, it was hope, and hope is what built this. Tears glistened in her eyes as the crowd erupted into applause, a testament to the lives she had touched. Aaliyah's journey was far from over, but her story had already left an indelible mark. It was a story of perseverance, community, and the power of small acts of kindness. It was a story that proved one person could make a difference, and that even the smallest gesture could ignite a fire that changes the world. Aaliyah's journey was fraught with obstacles that tested her resolve at every turn. Each rejection letter from potential sponsors was like a stone added to the weight on her shoulders. She would sit in her small, cluttered apartment late into the night, crafting heartfelt pitches and proposals, only to face silence or polite refusals. Every unopened email became a symbol of the barriers she struggled to break. Meanwhile, her landlord's patience wore thin, and the constant threat of eviction loomed over her like a dark cloud. Her rent was always late, and her explanations were met with curt dismissals. Her friends, once supportive, began to drift away. Their initial encouragement gave way to skepticism, and some openly questioned her choices. "You're exhausting yourself for a dream that won't materialize," one friend said, her tone tinged with pity. Others stopped answering her calls altogether, leaving Aaliyah to navigate her challenges alone. The loneliness was suffocating, but she refused to give up. She had promised herself she would fight for her dream, no matter how bleak things seemed. One bitterly cold night, As Aaliyah walked her usual route distributing supplies, she spotted a man sitting on a weathered piece of cardboard near a shuttered storefront. His clothes were tattered, and his hands trembled as he held a steaming cup of coffee someone had given him. Aaliyah approached with her usual offering of a blanket and a sandwich. The man looked up, his weary eyes meeting hers. "Thank you," he said softly, his voice carrying the weight of 1,000 untold stories. They began to talk, and the man introduced himself as Marcus. He was a veteran who had fallen on hard times after returning from service. His story was one of resilience, loss, and unwavering gratitude for the small kindnesses he encountered. As they talked, Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out a crumpled $5 bill. He held it out to Aaliyah, his hand shaking slightly from the cold. "This is for your nonprofit," he said with a smile that seemed almost out of place in the harshness of his reality. "Keep going. What you're doing matters." Aaliyah stared at the bill in disbelief, her heart swelling with emotion. That $5 was more than money. It was a message of hope and belief in her mission. She accepted it with tears in her eyes, promising Marcus she wouldn't let him or anyone else down. His simple yet profound gesture became a turning point for her. When Aaliyah returned home that night, she placed Marcus's $5 on her desk and stared at it for what felt like hours. His words echoed in her mind, and she felt a renewed sense of purpose. She decided to channel her emotions into action. Using the $5 as symbolic seed money, she launched a crowdfunding campaign. She recorded a heartfelt video late into the night, speaking directly to the camera. She shared her father's story, Marcus's kindness, and the countless faces she had encountered during her nightly rounds. Her voice cracked with emotion as she described the urgency of the situation and her dream to make a difference. The video was raw and unpolished, but it was authentic. She uploaded it, unsure of what to expect, and shared it with everyone she could think of. At first, donations trickled in slowly, small amounts from friends, co-workers, and strangers who resonated with her story. Then, something unexpected happened. A local journalist stumbled upon the campaign and wrote an article about Aaliyah's mission. The piece painted a vivid picture of her struggles and determination, and it struck a chord with readers. Within days, the crowdfunding campaign began to gain traction. Donations poured in, accompanied by messages of encouragement from people all over the country. Some shared their own stories of homelessness or thanked her for shedding light on an often overlooked issue. Aaliyah watched in awe as the total climbed higher and higher. Her modest goal surpassed within weeks. Her inbox was flooded with messages from people offering to volunteer, donate supplies, or simply express their gratitude. The momentum reached a peak when a viral video compilation of her efforts started circulating online. In the footage, Aaliyah was seen distributing supplies, comforting those in need, and speaking passionately about her vision. The video caught the attention of a major philanthropist, a well-known figure in the nonprofit world, who reached out with an offer that could change everything. He proposed a significant donation, enough to launch her nonprofit on a scale she had only dreamed of. But there was a catch. The philanthropist's condition was clear. Aaliyah would need to relocate her operations to a larger city, where the impact could be broader and more visible. He argued that her talents and resources would be better utilized in a place with more infrastructure and opportunities. While his reasoning was sound, Aaliyah's heart sank. Her mission had always been rooted in her community, the very streets where her father had once struggled, and where Marcus and countless others still fought to survive. Torn between the opportunity to expand her reach and her loyalty to the people she had set out to help, Aaliyah faced a crisis of conscience. The weight of the decision pressed down on her, and she knew she couldn't make it alone. She turned to the community for guidance, organizing a meeting in a local church hall. The room was filled with familiar faces, people she had helped, volunteers who had joined her cause, and supporters who believed in her vision. One by one, they shared their stories, each one a testament to the impact Aaliyah had already made. Marcus stood up, his voice steady and resolute. "Aaliyah didn't just give me a blanket or a meal. She gave me hope. And hope is what this community needs." His words were met with a wave of agreement, and Aaliyah felt tears prick her eyes. It became clear that her work was more than a mission. It was a lifeline for her community. The philanthropist, moved by the testimonies and the passion in the room, reconsidered his offer. He agreed to fund her nonprofit without the condition of relocation, allowing her to continue her work where it was needed most. It was a victory not just for Aaliyah, but for everyone who had believed in her vision. With the funding secured, Aaliyah's nonprofit, Second Chance Alliance, was officially launched. The organization quickly became a beacon of hope, providing shelter, counseling, and job training to those in need. The impact was immediate and profound, with homelessness in the area beginning to decline. Aaliyah's work inspired similar initiatives in other cities, and her story became a symbol of what could be achieved through perseverance and compassion. Aaliyah stood at the crossroads of one of the most critical decisions of her life. The offer from the philanthropist was a lifeline, one that could provide the financial security and infrastructure to make her vision a reality. Yet, the condition attached, relocating her operations to a larger city, felt like a betrayal of her roots and the people she had set out to help. She spent sleepless nights wrestling with the decision, her thoughts swirling with uncertainty and doubt. How could she abandon the streets where her father had suffered, the very places that had shaped her mission? Unable to resolve her inner turmoil, Aaliyah decided to turn to the people who mattered most, her community. She organized a meeting in the small, drafty hall of the local church, a place that had always served as a refuge for those in need. Word spread quickly, and on the night of the meeting, the room was packed. There were familiar faces, individuals she had helped during her nightly rounds, volunteers who had joined her cause, and supporters who had cheered her on from the sidelines. As Aaliyah stood before them, she felt a lump in her throat. She began by explaining the offer and the dilemma it posed, her voice trembling with emotion. "This decision isn't just about me," she said. "It's about all of us. I need to know what you think, because this nonprofit belongs to the community it was created for." One by one, people stood to speak. A middle-aged woman recounted how Aaliyah had provided her with food and warm clothes when she had lost everything. A young man shared how her encouragement had motivated him to apply for a job he never thought he could get, and how he was now on the path to stability. Each testimony was a testament to Aaliyah's impact, but it was Marcus's words that truly moved the room. The veteran rose slowly, his posture upright despite the hardships he had endured. His voice was steady, carrying the weight of his gratitude. "Aaliyah didn't just give me supplies or a hot meal," he said. "She gave me dignity and hope. That hope saved me when I thought there was nothing left. She's shown us that change can happen right here, where we live. We don't need to go anywhere else to prove that." The room erupted in applause, and Aaliyah felt her eyes fill with tears. In that moment, she realized the decision had already been made. Her community believed in her, and she could not abandon them. The philanthropist, who had been quietly observing the meeting, stood to address the crowd. His expression was thoughtful, his voice measured. "I've seen passion and resilience before," he said, "but what I've witnessed here tonight is something extraordinary. Aaliyah, you've proven that true change begins with the people who believe in it. I'm withdrawing the condition. The funding is yours, no strings attached." The room erupted into cheers, and Aaliyah felt an overwhelming sense of relief and gratitude. She hugged Marcus, her supporters, and even the philanthropist, knowing this was not just her victory, but a collective one. With the funding secured, Aaliyah wasted no time turning her dream into reality. Second Chance Alliance was born out of the very streets that had inspired her mission. The nonprofit opened its doors in an old community center, which was renovated to include temporary shelters, a kitchen, and rooms for counseling and job training. Aaliyah worked tirelessly, often putting in 18-hour days to ensure everything ran smoothly. She surrounded herself with a team of dedicated volunteers and staff, many of whom were individuals she had helped in the past. The impact of Second Chance Alliance was immediate. Homeless individuals who had once been overlooked found a safe space to rest, recover, and rebuild their lives. The organization's counseling programs provided mental health support, while its job training initiatives empowered people to regain independence. Within months, the change was palpable. The streets that had once been filled with despair now buzzed with hope and activity. Formerly homeless individuals began sharing their success stories, inspiring others to seek help and believe in the possibility of a better future. Aaliyah's efforts didn't go unnoticed. Local media covered the incredible transformation in the neighborhood, and her story began to gain national attention. Other cities reached out, seeking guidance on how to replicate her model. Aaliyah welcomed the opportunity to collaborate, sharing the lessons she had learned and the systems she had developed. Her nonprofit became a beacon of hope, proving that meaningful change was possible through compassion, determination, and community effort. Beyond the immediate impact on homelessness, Second Chance Alliance sparked broader social change. The city government took notice, allocating additional resources to address homelessness and poverty. Community members who had once been indifferent became active participants in the mission, volunteering their time, donating supplies, and advocating for systemic change. The ripple effects of Aaliyah's work extended far beyond what she had initially imagined. Despite the growing recognition and success, Aaliyah remained grounded. She continued her nightly rounds, personally connecting with those still struggling on the streets. Every blanket she handed out, every conversation she had, reminded her of why she had started this journey. She often thought of her father, whose struggles had ignited her mission, and Marcus, whose $5 had given her the strength to keep going. Their stories were woven into the fabric of Second Chance Alliance, serving as a reminder that every life mattered and every act of kindness had the power to transform. Aaliyah's work didn't just change lives, it changed perspectives. Her story became a testament to the power of perseverance and the importance of community. It inspired countless others to take action, proving that even in the face of immense challenges, one person could ignite a movement. As she stood outside the nonprofit's headquarters one evening, watching children play in a nearby park and families share meals in the shelter's dining hall, Aaliyah felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Her journey was far from over, but in that moment, she knew she had made a difference, and that, she realized, was all she had ever wanted. Aaliyah stood on the modest stage in the community center's newly renovated hall, her heart pounding as she looked out at the sea of faces before her. It was the one-year anniversary of Second Chance Alliance, and the room was alive with energy, laughter, and the hum of shared gratitude. The space was filled not just with supporters and volunteers, but with individuals whose lives had been transformed by the nonprofit. In her hands, Aaliyah held a small frame containing the crumpled $5 bill Marcus had given her that fateful night. It was a symbol of so much more than monetary value. It represented hope, resilience, and the belief in something greater than oneself. She took a deep breath, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, and began to speak. "This journey has been about more than just providing shelter or meals," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "It's been about restoring dignity, igniting hope, and proving that no matter how small the act, it can ripple outward and change the world. This $5 bill," she held the frame higher for everyone to see, "is not just a donation, it's a lifeline." Marcus didn't have much, but he believed in what we were trying to do. And that belief, that act of kindness, has brought us all here today. The room fell silent, captivated by her words. Aaliyah's mind briefly wandered to the countless nights she had spent walking the streets, handing out blankets and food, often questioning whether her efforts would amount to anything. She thought of her father, whose struggle with homelessness had ignited her mission, and of Marcus, whose simple gesture had rekindled her resolve during her darkest hour. Their stories, and those of so many others, were the foundation of Second Chance Alliance. She continued, her voice breaking with emotion. "Every face here today tells a story. Stories of struggle, yes, but also of triumph, of finding strength in the unlikeliest of places, and building something beautiful out of pain. To all of you who have shared your journey with me, who have given your time, your support, and your belief, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. The crowd erupted into applause, but Aaliyah wasn't done. She raised her hand to quiet the room, a soft smile on her face. "This is just the beginning," she said, her tone firm with determination. "We've seen what happens when a community comes together. We've seen the power of compassion and perseverance. And I promise you, this movement will continue to grow. We will continue to light the way for others, just as Marcus and so many of you lit the way for me." As she stepped down from the stage, the applause swelled to a deafening roar. People rushed forward to thank her, share their stories, and express their gratitude. Among them was Marcus, now employed in mentoring other veterans through the nonprofit's programs. He embraced Aaliyah warmly, his eyes filled with pride. "You did it, kid," he said, his voice rough but kind. "You turned a dream into something real, something that's changing lives." Aaliyah smiled through her tears. "We did it, Marcus. All of us." Over the next few hours, the celebration continued, filled with heartfelt speeches, shared meals, and joyous reunions. Aaliyah moved through the crowd, taking the time to connect with as many people as possible. Each interaction reaffirmed her belief in the power of community and the potential for change. As the evening wound down, Aaliyah found herself standing outside the community center. The air was cool and the stars sparkled overhead, reminding her of the countless nights she had spent under the same sky, dreaming of a day like this. She felt a deep sense of fulfillment, but also a burning desire to do more. The work was far from over, but tonight was proof that it was possible. In her pocket, she carried a small notebook where she jotted down her thoughts and goals. She opened it and wrote a single sentence. Asterisk, a dream fueled by struggle can light a fire that warms the coldest nights. Asterisk, as she closed the notebook, she heard the laughter of children playing in the park nearby and the sound of families sharing stories inside the center. The world felt different now, warmer, kinder, and filled with possibilities. Aaliyah turned to look at the glowing lights of the community center one last time before heading home. Her heart was full, and her spirit was unwavering. This was only the beginning of what she knew would be a lifelong journey of compassion and change. Her story, her mission, and her relentless belief in the power of kindness would continue to inspire others, proving that even in the darkest of times, a single light could guide the way to a brighter future. If this story touched your heart, show your support by liking this video and sharing it with others who believe in the power of kindness. Leave a comment to share your thoughts or your own stories of resilience and hope. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to subscribe for more emotional and inspiring stories that celebrate the human spirit.